This phone right here is little more than £200 here in the UK. Keep that price tag in mind as we go through this video because there are a number of specs that you get here with this phone that you don't get on phones that cost 4 times the price. Okay, for those of you not familiar with iQoo, you should probably know they're actually under the same parent company as Oppo and Vivo and even OnePlus and Realme, and they do seem to share quite a bit of their technology across. Of course, these two phones right here are 4 times the price. So you might be wondering, what have they cut back on? How have they saved money on this phone? Well, we will get into all of that stuff and you can let me know whether those things even matter to you at all. The color options as of right now are Stellar Black, and then this one, the Glacier Silver. And as you can see, it's kind of got that marbled effect to it, which is quite nice. It's got quad curved edges, so all 4 sides, and the curve that they've used here around the edges is what they're calling the golden angle. It's 40 degrees. The screen to body ratio here is 88.8%, and it's got really impressively thin bezels for a budget phone, and even the chin is quite thin, which is quite rare on phones at this price point. Thin phones are in right now, and this phone measures in at 7.89 millimeters. And the weight is just 199 grams. Now what's really going to blow your mind is this is actually thinner and lighter than the regular iPhone 16 right now, but the battery inside is more than double the size, which is incredible. The iQoo Neo Z10 has a 7,300 milliamp battery. Now 7,300 is a huge battery, and the way that they've managed to achieve this is by using 3rd gen silicon anode tech, a silicon carbon battery which can be more dense than the more traditionally used and cheaper lithium ion batteries. And check this out, in the box, unlike £1,000 flagships, you do actually get a charging brick, and most flagships today will charge at around 25 to 45 watts. This phone right here, £200, charges at 90 watts, and this is indeed a 90 watt charging brick. This is another little advantage that this phone has over a lot of phones. This one has actually passed the military standard 810H tests. So this does mean this phone has been tested for drops and shocks and even extreme temperatures. And inside this phone, there is a shock absorbing structure. And apparently this glass on top has been strengthened twice to make this one of the most robust phones from iQoo, and it also has an IP65 ingress protection rating, which is a level 6 for dust protection, which is pretty high, and then a level 5 for water, so it can survive rain and some low pressure jets of water, but it cannot be submersed. Now, just to make things even more durable, iQoo have very kindly thrown in a case in the box as well, which is again something we don't get on phones that cost 4 times the price. Now when it comes to the camera design, you can tell they have designed it to look like the much more expensive flagships. This is the Oppo and the Vivo flagships right now. You've got the circular camera module there, and there appears to be a number of cameras, but in fact there's only one. And if you're going to use only one main camera, you better make it a good one, and the good news is it is a pretty good one. It uses a Sony IMX882 sensor. It does have optical image stabilization. What you might think is the second camera here is in fact a depth sensor. So this is for measuring distance and adding that blurry background effect, and essentially just adding that extra depth information into your photos. And to improve the one camera that it does have on the back, they have equipped it with a spherical lens. You've also got a dual LED light ring here for your torch and brightening things up with the flash if you need to. And what you might think is the third lens, I believe, is a light sensor. You've got your buttons here located on the right side, so your power and volume rocker. Nothing on the left side, so this is very similar to a Samsung setup. You've got your USB-C charging on the base, one speaker grill for the downward firing speakers, and then the SIM tray. You've got a dual SIM tray supporting 2 5G SIMs. Okay, now let's look at the front side of the phone. So up top we have that punch hole cut out for the 32 megapixel selfie camera. Under the glass you have an optical fingerprint scanner, which is nice and fast. The display itself is a 6.77 inch 120Hz AMOLED. It's Full HD+, 388 pixels per inch. Okay, so here's another flagship killer feature. The local peak brightness on this phone is 5,000 nits. It wasn't too long ago that 2,000 nits was considered flagship level. Also, there's a bunch of eye comfort features here like 3840 PWM dimming. This just helps to reduce eye strain. And also this has a feature borrowed from OnePlus. They call it the wet hand touch here on the iQoo, but essentially if there is water on the screen can still register those fingerprints and allow you to use the phone. So if it is raining, which it is a lot of the time here in the UK, you can still use the touchscreen. Okay, so now let's talk about the performance. We already know this phone has the power, 7,300 milliamp hours of power to be precise. And what makes this phone even more special is the chipset that they've chosen for this one. So it's the Snapdragon 7S Gen 3. This isn't the flagship, it's one step down from the 8 Gen 3, which was the 2024 flagship chip from Qualcomm. What's interesting about this one is it's actually even more power efficient than the flagship chip, and that's because the flagship one runs a lot hotter, it's a lot more powerful. This one can keep a pace for longer whilst using less power. And something else that improves the performance of this phone quite a lot is the fact that they have equipped it with 12 gigs of LPDDR4X RAM, and you can actually expand that to double the amount of RAM if you're willing to sacrifice some of the storage. And in this case, on this particular model that I have here, it's got 512 gigs, so I could easily double the RAM without having to worry about it. You should probably know there are also 128 gig versions of this phone with 8 gigs of RAM. Again, you could double the RAM there if you wanted to. So the operating system on this phone is FunTouch OS. This is a skin over Android 15, so a lot of the familiar features will be there if you've used any other Android phone in the past. For example, circle to search, where you can just hold your finger down on the navigation bar at the bottom, the screen lights up, and then you can circle around anything to search for it. There is AI within iQoo's own Notes app, so here you can actually use what's called Note Assist to summarize notes for you, help you format things and create bullet points and lists from your notes. And there is AI within the Photos app, so you can erase things just by drawing around them. It will select them, and then it will use the AI to fill in the gaps and get rid of it. And it works pretty well. There's also an AI enhance feature, so if you hit repair, it can analyze the photo and use AI to enhance it even further. So if you have some old photos which were lower res taken on older phones, you can use this to upscale them. There's also a really nice feature here for scanning documents, and you can see it kind of locks onto the edges of the document, so when you take the photo you get a really nice scanned version of that document without having to do any editing afterwards. And the overall user interface on this phone is nice. There is some bloatware that you might want to get rid of, like Agoda and these recommended apps and things like that, and Block Blast. You can just uninstall those, no problem. When it comes to customization, there are quite a few tweaks and settings you can play with to really make the phone your own. And of course, you've got a bunch of different wallpaper options, and you can even set up different themes and things like that. You also have the little edge panel as well, which is always nice. It's a great place to keep your AI tools and shortcuts to the AI apps like the Notes app. And if you're a gamer, there's even an ultra game mode which you can make use of, which will improve the performance of the phone. You can even bypass the battery if you're powering from the mains whilst gaming. That keeps the temperature on the phone lower, which does mean the Snapdragon 7S Gen 3 can push those graphics a little bit harder for you. Okay, so at this price point, £200, this is hard to beat. 7,300 milliamp hour battery, which is incredible. A very, very power efficient chip, which is capable of gaming and has all your AI and all that kind of stuff and can handle all of those things. The user interface is smooth and up to date and secure. Now, this all sounds good, but you might be wondering, how have they managed to keep this price so low? Well, here are the areas that they've saved money, and let me know if these matter to you or not. Number one, a single firing downward speaker, which is okay if you hold your phone this way around when gaming, but if you hold your phone the other way around, you could easily block those speakers. It's a minor inconvenience that you can fix pretty quickly just by flipping the phone around. Number two, the storage and RAM. So the UFS storage here is version 2.2 and the RAM is LPDDR4X. So these are older versions of the storage, which does mean this phone won't be quite as fast as the flagships when it comes to loading times and install times and even backgrounding, but you do get a lot of it on this phone. So that kind of balances it out. Number 3 is a refresh rate. So whilst this is a very bright display and has very narrow bezels and great pixel density, the fact is that this phone can only adjust between 60 Hz and 120 Hz. Other more expensive devices can actually go step by step from 1 all the way up to 120 and sometimes even 144 Hz. It just jumps between those two refresh rates. And this makes it slightly less power efficient, but then the real strength for this phone is its battery life. So I wouldn't say that this is that much of a negative. Another area where iQoo has saved some money is on this optical fingerprint scanner. So the more expensive phones now tend to have sonic in-display fingerprint readers, and those are just a little bit more secure. But this one right here is also very secure and is incredibly fast and pretty much never misses. Now this might be a big deal to some and less to others, but it's the fact that this phone just has one primary camera and it doesn't have an ultra wide or a tele. However, you can crop in on the primary sensor if you do want to take photos a little bit further away. And also, let's not forget, this does have a 32 megapixel selfie. Most flagship phones actually only have a 12 megapixel selfie camera. So maybe that balances things out for you a little bit. The USB-C charging port is actually an older version. However, it does support that 90 watt fast charging, and 90 watts is pretty much double what we get on flagships. So again, there's a little bit of a trade-off there. And of course, this does not have Qi wireless charging. So the charging coils that are in more expensive phones, they've not put that in here. So you can't do wireless charging or reverse wireless charging, but you can do wired reverse charging at 6.5 watts. So if you do run out of power on another device, you can plug in a cable from here to that device and use the massive battery on this phone to charge that up. I must say the most impressive thing about this phone to me is the battery and the efficiency of the phone, and the fact that the display is so good and doesn't have massive bezels all the way around or a massive chin. Those are all big wins in my opinion. And I do believe this right now just might be the value champ to beat. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, a little thumbs up would be appreciated. If you just subscribed, you're now one of the finest subscribers known to man. See you in the next one. Don't be late.